and players mobbing.
But Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jason Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by PrizePicks and the Game Time app.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Big Three NBA podcast. Of course, we had to do 2 episodes this week because it's a really busy week for the Celtics. Sherrod Blakely, Gary Washburn, and myself, Kwani Lunis. So before we get started, though, I wanted to give a quick shout out to PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, and also to remind you that you are listening to the Big Three NBA podcast, which is part of the CLNS Media Network, where you can find our podcast, past and present, as well as other great Celtics content. So if you're into the Boston Celtics and all things that's happening with the team, the CLNS Media Network has you covered. That being said, the Celtics have been very active this week. We're going to start first with the 2 big trades that most Celtics fans probably expected at this point. Jrue Holiday to Portland, and Kristaps Porzingis to Atlanta. Right off the top, what are your reactions? Even though, again, most of us knew that this was going to be a thing.
we talked a little bit about Jrue when he got traded to Portland and them getting Anthony Simmons, and that's they got younger, saved some money. Porzingis was the one that we weren't really sure, and I think most people weren't sure they'd be able to execute just based on just how the season ended for him and just whether there'd be a market for him at this point in the trade season. So Celtics were able to unload him. Not crazy about what they got in return for him. But and we'll talk a bit more about that later. But when you look at the amount of money that they are going to be saving with these 2 deals, and the fact that you're not going to have Tatum at the start of the season, or if at all, and Jalen, you're not really sure exactly whether he's ready to be that alpha and lead you deep into the playoffs. The deals made a lot of sense for them in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, everybody had talked about they had to get under the second apron, and they needed to, and they did it in 24 hours. I thought the Holiday deal for Simons is definitely intriguing because Simons is a kid who was kind of played under the radar for his career. I'm sure a lot of Celtic fans really don't know a lot about him. He's not, he was kind of the understudy to Dame and CJ in his early years, came out of IMG, kid didn't attend college, went to IMG Academy. I think one of the first players to come out of that academy and go straight to the league, late first-round pick, and then has ascended into being a really polished scorer, about 20 points a game, about 37% from the 3. Not a great defender, but just an intriguing prospect in the final year of his contract. I know in Portland, I talked to some people out there who just said he had requested a trade before last season. The Blazers were kind of building around him, Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson, Donovan Kling, and they had guys coming in, Dingy Avita, and Chauncey and Sherrod's buddy, Chauncey Billup, his system is defense, and Simons is not a great defender, so it was not a good match. He wanted to go actually to Orlando. That didn't work out. I actually saw Simons. He attended Game 3 at a series between the Celtics and the Magic in Orlando, and I recognized him there. And him and a couple of former teammates watched the game right in front of me, almost like a row ahead of me. So he's an intriguing prospect. Last year of his deal, is he going to be a piece that you can keep? He's going to be extension eligible eventually. Do you bring him on and do you make him like that third piece with Jalen and Jason eventually? What do you do with him? I think that'll be kind of the thing that's kind of lingered, but I think he can bring talent. He can be that number 2, 3 guy with Jalen and Derek on this team. So I think that was a good return. And like Sherrod said, you didn't get much for Porzingis. Georges Niang's a kind of a bench guy, a fiery guy who can hit some threes.
I can't even hear you say his name, Gary, and not cringe. I'm sorry.
Yeah. A kid who's from Lawrence, a local kid, so he'll be coming home. Interesting story. Georges Niang was a Division I. I think he went to prep school, came out, begged to go to Boston College.
Why? I have no idea.
Now,
Great. I wonder why he would want to go to such a
wanted to go to BC,
Wow.
wanted to go to BC, stay at home. BC wanted no part of him. Ended up playing at Iowa State and being a draft pick and making, playing 8-9 years in the league. So
you could have contributed to your alumni association, Kwani.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with BC. I don't know what's up. I don't know why BC had against him, but he ended up going to Iowa State. But to me, yeah, I'm not crazy about that return either. But I just think they had to get. I don't think Porzingis' stock coming into the final year of his deal, being injured, knowing you're going to get maybe 50 games out of him, was going to have boost his stock at all. It was going to be low. The thing I might have done if I'm the Celtics is he plans on playing in the European Championships for Latvia. Now, if he is hooping in that championship and playing well, then his stock goes up. So you might be able to get more for him after August, in August after the championships, as opposed to June when no one knows if he's telling people, "Oh, I feel great now," and all that. Suddenly the mystery illness is gone and whatever. But maybe there was something where the Celtics were like, you know what, man, we just want to cut ties. So, and we love the guy, but this illness was kind of the last straw, and his salary and being the final year of his deal. So I'm not crazy about the return, but they're under this second apron. That boot is off their neck now. Now they can have more flexibility to upgrade the roster, which is, I think you're going to see some things going on this summer.
Yeah.
Sherrod, Gary is not crazy about the return, but what is the realistic expectation for Niang?
For Niang, that he'll compete for playing time off the bench, or possibly as like maybe that fifth starter, depending if Joe goes small ball. One of the things that, and we'll talk a bit more about this as we talk about, the players that Detroit has acquired through trade and through the draft, is these are players that fit very much into the style offensively that Joe Mazzulla likes to play. He wants guys who can shoot. Niang, that's the one thing that you're going to get from him. He is a guy that can knock down shots. You just look at the type of players, for the most part, that they are adding to the mix. That's part of their MO. And so it's very consistent in that regard. But this is a guy that's not going to move the needle. In fact, it wouldn't shock me if he's on the move between now and the start of training camp. I wouldn't be surprised if he's packaged, with another player or pick or some combination of those and is sent elsewhere. Because I just don't see him as a guy that fits into the mold of, certainly not a core guy, and I would say borderline add-on type of player. I mean, when I look at a guy like Sam Hauser, like if you're going to move on from Sam Hauser this summer, for example, then yeah, you keep Niang because that makes sense. But to have both of those guys around, and you got Peterson, from the G League, who, he's an interesting player. He seems to be the kind of guy that Joe Mazzulla at some point is going to find a way to keep around, similar to what they did with Sam Hauser. So Niang, George Niang, again, I think he's a good shooter for sure. I just don't know if he's someone that fits into what this team is looking to do in the short and or certainly not long term.
Yeah, I tend to think he can maybe take the place of like a Torrey Craig in terms of like that role, that kind of wily veteran role. He's a fiery guy. He'll push, he'll shove, he'll get into it with the other team. He's a guy who talks mess. Like he can bring kind of that fire if you really want another kind of adult on the bench, because now you got to pad the bench, right? We don't know what's going to happen with Horford. We don't know what's going to happen with Luke Cornett. So your bench is basically Hauser, if he's still around, Neemias Queta, J.D. Davidson, Pritchard, if Pritchard isn't starting. So you might need more of an adult on the bench. So Niang could maybe fit that role. He's the final year of his deal. Obviously, he's a guy who's not going to sign a big extension. He's playing basically for his NBA career here. He's got to prove useful for wherever he goes. He's got to, because he's making $8.5 million, and essentially that's not going to. He's probably not going to make that again unless he has a good year, right? He's playing kind of for his vitality in the league. So if you're, he could be a useful piece, because obviously you're probably, unless Torrey Craig somehow resigns, and maybe he signs a veteran minimum to come back because he likes it so much, or whatever, and it's economic for Niang, I think he could serve a purpose as being one of the adults on the bench if you need that. And he's always, he was pretty good in Cleveland. I think he had some moments in a little brief stint in Atlanta. So you can use him. He's not a useless player, but you could also use his salary for another. I think anything with the Celtics right now, anything can go. Besides probably Jalen, obviously Jason, but Jalen, Derek, and Jason. I think those and Pritchard are probably the only four who are safe. Everybody else could be moved.
Let's look at the moves that the Celtics made during the draft specifically. All right, Hugo Gonzalez with the 28th pick. Boston selected Noah Penda from France, traded him to Orlando for the number 46 and 57th pick. Then we look at Amari Williams of Kentucky. He was acquired from Orlando with that 46th pick. Max Schuga of VCU. He was acquired from Orlando with that 57th pick. All that to say, what do you make from the second round picks that the Celtics went with?
The second round picks, they were okay. When you're picking, you're not going to find, a great all-star caliber player for the most part in those spots. But you're looking for guys who you can develop. I mean, that's really what the second round, particularly when you get to the middle, the latter stages, is about, is finding guys that you can develop. And hopefully at some point they can, best case scenario for most mid to late second round picks is to be a rotational guy. We'll talk a bit more about Hugo later. I think that's a pretty safe and solid pick. I mean, he's an effort guy. And when you look at this team, they really don't have folks like that. Just even though he's a different kind of player, I look at him as potentially filling the void that was left when you lost Aaron Nesmith, a guy that just plays hard. He's not going to necessarily score a ton of points. He's not jumping out the gym. He's just going to effort his way onto the court. And you can use a guy or two like that. But again, with Tatum out of the mix, there is a clear void, and I don't think the Celtics necessarily know how that void is going to be filled. And so what they're, I think, essentially trying to do with the trades and with the draft is find guys that have different types of strengths and skills and just see which one or ones work with their core group and see if they can just kind of jerry-rig, this upcoming season and just, frankly, manufacture wins and just get to the postseason and go from there. Because as much as they don't want to say it, this upcoming season is kind of a throwaway season if you're talking about championships. This team is not being built to win a championship. This team is not being built to make a deep playoff run. This team is built to simply get from 25-26 to 26-27 relatively intact with no one suffering any type of significant injury. And in that process, develop some players that can potentially play a role once you make the decision to go back to contending for titles. And that's really what a lot of these picks are about just finding guys that have a very specific strength and skill, develop that, and hopefully, in a couple of years, they could be someone that you're talking about competing for a roster spot, certainly, and potentially a rotation spot.
Yeah, I feel like with the second round picks, it was interesting. With the 32nd pick, you had a choice of players. Obviously, the Celtics were targeting, I was told, Rasheed Fleming from St. Joe's. Phoenix traded up to get him at 31. So that was where everything kind of went to hell with the Celtics' plans for 32, because I think they fully planned to take Fleming before Phoenix trade up to get him. And I think the Celtics also didn't feel strongly enough about anybody else to give them a guaranteed contract, because you're going to have to probably give a second round pick taking that high one of those Jordan Walsh deals, right? Where you're 4-year deal, 2 guaranteed. So you're bringing on another guaranteed contract, and you still have to decide. They have till Sunday to decide about J.D. Davidson's deal, whether to pick up that option. It's still non-guaranteed, but do you keep him on your roster and keep him on salary? If not, cut bait with him. And they've got till Sunday to offer Drew Peterson a qualifying offer to bring him back on the two-way. So I think they didn't feel probably strongly enough about, like, say, Maximilian Renault or the kid from Creighton to take him at 32 and then give that person a 4-year deal. One of the, I would just say the Jordan Walsh deal, or the Jordan, or what Sherrod's one of his all-time favorite tells, the Jordan Mickey deal.
My dude.
Yeah, it didn't work out there, but so they dipped into the 40s, got a kid from Kentucky who has skills, passing skills, put up almost a double-double per game for the Wildcats. A guy who knows how to play, and then plucked a kid who's intriguing, through the Atlantic 10 Player of the Year, a guy who shoots almost 40 from 3.
4 years at Drexel. Yep.
Yeah, 4 years after, so he's a veteran guy he's going to be on that summer league team. So that's a kid that I mean, at this point, when you're the Celtics, you got to land some of these late round picks. You can't be just taking these crazy chances unless you get a draft and stash guy. The second round, I mean, this draft, as we know, like, some of these kids are not, like, some of these first rounders are going to be busts. Like, we all know it. And it's when these kids are coming in one and dones and they play, they average 9 points a game and they're coming to the league. Like, some of them are not going to get better, right? Some of them are not going to improve. And some of the kids who fall to the second round are going to be ballers. They're going to be, I don't know about Draymond Green or Nikola Jokic, but they're going to be rotational guys. They're going to be guys you can eventually use and be part of your equation for many years to come. So the Celtics need to hit on some of these damn picks. Like, they can't keep taking dudes. Like, they took Anton Watson and they got rid of him before this last year, and everybody was kind of excited. A veteran kid out of Gonzaga who could shoot. He was an improving shooter, and then they didn't like his progress. So they just cut bait with him. Like, you can't keep having this happen where you get these dudes that are just, going, you can't keep having this. You got to land on some of these kids, especially if you're going to pay Jason and Jalen and Derek and all these guys. You got to have somebody who plays well and don't make a whole lot of money. So we'll see. But I was impressed with the 2 second-round picks they got. They turned 1 pick into 2. And let's see what these kids do. We'll get a look at them in Vegas at Summer League.
And we will actually now take a look at the first round pick that the Celtics made. But before we do that, I want to remind you that you are listening to this show. If you're listening to the show, we're asking that you subscribe, like, and leave a review. And for those that are watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Celtics All Access YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other Celtics content on a regular basis. Also, make sure you turn on those notifications so you know the instant a new video drops.
And while you're at it, as we're giving shout outs to folks we love, quick shout out to our good friends at PrizePicks, which is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Don't miss your chance to cash in while watching your favorite teams and athletes compete this summer. On PrizePicks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports, combine your favorite baseball players and with players from soccer, esports, and much, much more. And with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks, which, again, is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. It is the best place, again, to win cash while watching your favorite players. There's weekly promotions, Taco Tuesday, discounts, etc., so on and so forth. They've also invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. Shout out to PrizePicks for that, because my lineup has been consistently imperfect, and they've done me a solid, so I did not completely lose out. So how do you get in? It's real simple. You download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
Okay, we're back. So with the 28th pick, the Celtics selected a 19-year-old wing, Hugo Gonzalez from Spain. Sherrod, I'll ask you this first. Does this pick hopefully reverse Boston's poor record when it comes to international talent?
Oh goodness, yes, and when I think about the Celtics, I think about international players. There's so many that come to mind. Gary and I were having an offline conversation about this. Gary, I'm gonna say the guy that that I love that did not go to Syracuse because that was my guy. But I think about guys like Fab Melo, who again did not pan out even after a year or two at Syracuse. I think there's so many guys that they've brought from an international scope that just frankly just didn't work out. And Hugo, the thing about him that I think is a little bit different is that those guys in the past, they usually had a very specific skill set, like they could shoot or they could pass or they could rebound. Hugo was an effort guy, high energy, and that's a skill set that if that's one of your strengths, is usually transferable to whatever level of play that you are going to. It's just a matter of can they figure out a way to just utilize that in a positive way so that he's not out there getting 6 fouls in 5 minutes. That's the fear when you got guys who are high energy. So I think he's a guy that certainly is going to get an opportunity to play his way into a meaningful role, especially when you look at that wing position and you look at the amount of, and as I touched on earlier, there's a huge void there with Jason Tatum. You don't know whether you feel that with a high energy guy. Do you look for someone who can knock down shots? Do you look for a guy who is a more of a facilitator? Do you look for a combination of those three? And if you're looking at a combination of using multiple players, what's the right balance of who plays the bulk of those minutes? So he's going to get an opportunity to play his way into a meaningful role sooner rather than later, even for a girl like Joe Mazzulla, who doesn't particularly like to play rookies. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays out once he gets to Summer League, in a few weeks.
Yeah, I looked at his numbers, and first of all, it's kind of deceiving because he's playing with a bunch of dudes who played in the league, like Facundo Campazzo, Serge Ibaka is still playing. He's playing for Real Madrid. Usman Garuba, who is a former first-round pick. Sergio Yul, who is a former pick of the Houston Rockets, who's a kind of a Spanish legend. These are all the guys on his team. Danzin Musa, who was a draft pick of the Nets. He is playing with Mario Mendoza, who was like the 5th overall pick back in the day. I want to say by the Knicks or Portland. I think, so he's playing with literally 7 to 8 guys who with NBA experience who were either draft picks or had a stint in the league. So he's not playing with chumps. So he's not playing much at all. He played in the first 40 games before they went into the Spanish League tournament. He played in 30 of them, right? And so his numbers are not going to pop off the board as impressive. So you're taking a kid who hasn't played much, probably isn't going to play much because Real Madrid's given their name, they're trying to win. So they're not going to play. They're not going to play a dude just to throw him out there and see what he can do. Like they want, they're trying to win. So he averaged 1.9 points, shot 33% from 3. So he played 7.3 minutes a game for a team that went 22-18. But I would say if you look at some of the Gabriel Deck, who used to play, who's a former Thunder. One of our old buddies, former Celtic Bruno Fernando, was on that team.
Bruno!
So Dennis Smith Jr. played a quick stint with them. So this is a team that's filled with NBA guys. And this is a guy who's 18, 19 years old. So I didn't expect him unless he was literally like
Luka
to be out there getting major minutes. So that impacts his transition to the league. I think playing in Spain and playing in that European style, he'll know how to play the game. He'll be fundamentally sound. He'll be fine. It's just going to be the transition to playing with real NBA players in the NBA game. Now, would it help if he played in Summer League? Yeah, but I don't know if he's going to jump over here that quickly in a couple of weeks. They just won the Spanish League title. The season just ended the night of the draft. So is he going to jump over here in 2 weeks and be on the floor for the Celtics Summer League team? Probably not. But this is going to be, but it's an intriguing prospect. He's young. He's not going to make a lot of money for a while. You tutor him, and hopefully in the next coming years, as we know, Spanish prospects have been, there's the, Sergio Rodriguez, White Chocolate. There's been guys who have been very good. Ricky Rubio. Ricky came over here as probably the best, quote unquote, highest touted Spanish prospect ever, and had a solid career. I think people thought he was going to be like Luka. People thought he was going to be the Spanish Magic Johnson. It didn't work out. He played 13 years, had a nice, solid career.
But he was drafted ahead of Steph Curry, and that's the thing that hurt him.
Yeah. But Rubio, I remember him playing in the Olympics at 18, and everybody was like, that's the kid, or 17. Everybody, that's the one. He's Jason Kidd. He's Steve Nash. He is going to be that. He's going to take the NBA by storm, and it never really worked out that way. Although he turned it into a solid career. So it's all over the board with Spanish prospect. Even Sergio Llull was supposed to be, a guy who could play and didn't work out. And when he played for the Rockets and he went back to Spain, so it's kind of a crapshoot. But the upside and what people were saying about him, he's got definite potential. It's a steal, but it's going to take some time. And you could have taken a veteran dude, a 23-year-old who was ready to come in there and contribute immediately. But I think the Celtics are looking and saying, listen, man, we're preparing for the future. And it's not a fun transition, but maybe it was some situation, because I had in my mock draft him taken before that. So maybe he just landed and they were like, wait a minute, let's just take this kid. So you hope that he can just make a quick transition, but I think it's going to take some time.
Hopefully he'll have a better career than my good friend Vitor Favarani.
Gary, you mentioned looking to the future. As we wrap this up, what would you say, and Sherrod, you can answer after, what is the impact of not only the draft, but the trades that went down this past week on Boston as we look towards next season?
I don't think we know anything that's going to happen. I don't think we know really how this team's going to look next year, because I think free agency is coming. Celtics now, under the first apron, they have a mid-level, the taxpayer mid-level they can use, so they can bring somebody in. The question is, how close? Do they want to? They don't want to go back to the second apron, so they're going to be careful with the money they spend. But they can also aggregate players and deals. They can add cash to deal. There's some things they can do now. So we'll see what happens with free. This is not a great free agent class. This is not going to be exciting because most of the free agents. LeBron's going back to the Lakers. James Harden's can go re-sign with the Clippers. Julius Randle, I think it's a player option, team option. Is he going to be back in Minnesota? There's not a whole bunch of sizzle in terms of this free agent class. So don't expect the Celtics to bring in, or they're going to make some trades. But I just think they're going to have to add to the roster, and I just think this is Brad's opportunity, guys, to bring in or sign or trade for the next Derek White. I'm not talking about to replace Derek White, but maybe a player who has not developed or not played as well in his previous spot will come to Boston and be a real contributor. I think that's the Derek White thing, the Sam Hauser. This is his chance to build this roster with players who maybe just are now going to be bumped out of a position because of the draft, or Brooklyn took 5 guys, so they got 5 dudes coming into camp. So somebody in Brooklyn going to be available, right? You ain't going to have – you got 5 rookies coming in, which is crazy. No one envisioned them taking all those players. They did. But you're going to have guys who are going to be without a job or with on the end of the bench somewhere. Maybe the Celtics can pluck one of those guys, make an acquisition, and bring those guys to Boston and develop them, because I think that's what is going to be next on the docket, is just kind of developing and bringing in guys, because you're not going to get, unless you trade one of your major guys, you're not going to, Simons is it. Simons is the best player you're going to get probably, and I think that's a real steal. If the light turns on defensively, and I was talking to people in Portland who said, hey, he just needs to change the scenery. He was ready to get out. This will inspire him. He's a kid from the eastern part. He's from Florida. So maybe being back close, not close, super close to home, but back on the eastern side of things will motivate him in playing for the Celtics as opposed to playing for Portland. Will motivate him in being in a walk year where he's in the final year of his deal, trying to get paid, get that real money. So I think Brad's going to spend this summer trying to upgrade the roster, but with guys that we might not know a lot about, with guys who might not have done stuff and accomplished a lot of things in their previous team, but could come to Boston and flourish.
Yeah, and I think along those lines, Gary, I think when he's looking at how to bolster this roster going forward, I don't think he's going to spend a ton of time looking at who they already have in inventory, because we've seen 2 or 3 years of JD. We've seen a couple years of Jordan Wash. We've seen a lot of the guys that are kind of on the fringe more than 1 year, and they really haven't made the kind of growth and progress that if you're Brad, you feel confident that they're going to be able to contribute this year. So why not, let 1 or 2 of those guys go and bring in some fresh blood to get a new look, to give some guys a shot that, they have some intriguing skills. The Max Shulga kid, I find him very fascinating. His experience, the fact that he is a shooter, he's got some international experience as well. I know he spent some time in Spain. This is one of those picks where, we could be looking at this 2 or 3 years now, and this could be, Sam Hauser 2.0 type of player, someone who kind of gives you that nice little jolt offensively that you need, that you're not getting from the others around you. So I think that there's going to be some opportunities for Brad to add some different kind of juice to the mix for this team, because we've seen, again, if I'm Jordan Walsh, I'm not feeling great right now.
Yeah.
If I am, any of those, if I'm JD Davison, I'm not feeling great right now because they have given you more. And I don't really care if you won G League MVP. Okay, looks nice on the mantle, something to talk about when you had a barbecue, but is that really going to move the needle of you being an NBA player? And I think the way the Celtics approach this draft with the first and second round picks, they've basically put all those fringe guys that have been here the last couple of years on notice that, look, you may not be here, and these are the guys that may be taking your place. So what can you – so it's going to be interesting to see how Brad finds that balance between the new guys that he wants to take a look at and some of the guys that he might want to hold on to get maybe give him one last shot. And again, the point that Gary made earlier about just, getting under that second apron is huge, because now that they can put salaries together, they can put together – if a team is just looking to have some decent players with very little commitment money-wise, they might give the Celtics 2 or 3 conditional second-round picks for a Jordan Walsh and a JD Davison or something like that. We've seen those type of deals done before. Wouldn't be surprised if the Celtics were to execute one of those deals to just essentially clear roster spots for guys that they want to take a closer look at who they haven't seen as much of thus far.
So much to look forward to here on the Big 3 NBA podcast. So before we get out of here, I'm going to remind you one more time, we're asking that you subscribe to the podcast, like, and leave a review. And for those of you that are watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the CLNS Media and Celtics All Access YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Celtics content all summer long. And one more thing before you leave, make sure you turn on those notifications so that you know the instant a new video drops. For Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani Lunis, and this is the Big 3 NBA podcast.